Let's be honest. Have you wondered if AI is going to take your job? Ever since it just exploded onto the scene in late 2022, that question's been on pretty much everyone's mind. But you know what? The answer is way more complicated and frankly a lot more interesting than you might think. To really navigate this new world, we've got to understand what AI truly is, and, maybe more importantly, what our role is right alongside it.
This idea right here, it comes from some of the top tech analysts out there, and it just perfectly frames the entire conversation. See, it's not about us versus the machines. It's about a partnership.
Okay, a co-led future sounds pretty good, right? But what does it actually look like? In our day-to-day jobs, in our lives? That's the big question we're going to unpack today.
All right, let's dive in. To get a handle on this partnership, we first need a super clear picture of what we're partnering with. You've probably heard all the buzzwords, machine learning, neural networks, and I promise by the end of this, you'll actually get what they mean. So, when we strip away all the hype, what are we really talking about when we say AI? Well, at its core, it's about giving computers the ability to do things that, until now, have been totally human. Things like learning from experience, reasoning through a tough problem, and making really complex decisions.
So how in the world do we teach a computer to think like us? Well, one of the key ways is through something called machine learning. And honestly, this analogy is perfect. Think about it. You don't teach a toddler what a dog is by giving them a list of rules. You just show them dogs. Big ones, little ones, fluffy ones, and eventually their brain just clicks and gets the pattern. Machine learning is the exact same idea. It just has a massive, massive appetite for data.
And that whole process, it kicks off with data, and I mean a mountain of it. Imagine feeding a computer every single customer purchase from the last 10 years, or every medical record from a hospital's entire history. Then, you just let an algorithm loose on that mountain to find all the hidden patterns and build a model that can start making predictions. And then you've got deep learning, which is basically machine learning on steroids. This is the stuff that powers the most advanced AI we see today. It uses these things called neural networks, which are super complex layered systems that are loosely modeled on the connections in our own brains. Just picture a series of filters. The first layer might spot simple lines and shapes. The next combines them into textures, the next into objects, until boom, it can identify a tumor on a medical scan with incredible accuracy.
So now that we have a basic idea of how AI actually works, we can get to the most important part of this whole thing: how we work with it. This is where we stop thinking about AI as a replacement and start seeing it as a seriously powerful collaborator.
And that brings us to this really crucial distinction. You know the self-checkout at the grocery store? That's automation. It replaces the cashier. But now, picture a surgeon using a robotic arm to perform a super delicate operation. The robot isn't replacing the surgeon, it's augmenting their skill, giving them superhuman precision. That's augmentation, and that, right there, is the real power of AI.
This human-in-the-loop model is exactly how augmentation works in the real world. The AI does all the initial heavy lifting, maybe sifting through millions of data points, but it's smart enough to know what it doesn't know, so when it gets stuck or its confidence level drops, it flags the problem and passes it over to a human for the final call.
It all just boils down to this one simple idea. AI can process 1 million documents in a minute, no problem. But you need a human to understand the nuance, the context, and the real-world impact of all that information.
And hey, this isn't just some nice theory. One major study found that a staggering 55% of AI outputs still need human judgment to actually be effective. So why? It's because AI really struggles with ambiguity, with new situations it's never seen before, and with making those value-based decisions that don't have a clear right or wrong answer. You can automate execution, sure, but you can't automate accountability. That responsibility, that's deeply human.
So that's the dream of the human-AI partnership. But what happens when we get it wrong? What happens when we take the human out of the loop too soon, all in the name of pure autonomy? Well, the results can get a little weird.
One of the most bizarre and kind of dangerous risks is this thing researchers are calling model collapse. Think of it like a kind of digital dementia. When AIs are trained on data created by other AIs, they start to forget what the real world actually looks like. They get stuck in this bizarre echo chamber of their own making, and their outputs just become more and more strange and unreliable over time.
But the biggest challenge with AI might not even be technical. It might be philosophical. It's a question that gets right to the heart of what it means to be conscious. Can a machine that's just shuffling symbols around ever truly understand anything?
There's this famous thought experiment called the Chinese room that illustrates this perfectly. So imagine you're in a room with a giant rulebook. You don't speak a single word of Chinese. When someone slips a question in Chinese under the door, you just use the rulebook to find the right symbols and slip back a perfect answer. To the person outside, you look totally fluent. But are you? Or are you just a really, really good symbol manipulator? And this is the critical point that the philosopher John Searle was making. AI can be an absolute master of syntax. That's the grammar, the rules of language. But that doesn't mean it has any grasp of semantics, the actual meaning behind the words. Just like the person in that room, it can follow all the rules without understanding a single thing.
So, if AI can't truly understand, how can we ever trust it? Well, the good news is we don't have to make it human. Instead, researchers are coming up with really clever ways to build safer, more reliable systems that work with these limitations, not against them.
One of the most promising ideas is something called constitutional AI. Instead of trying to teach an AI right from wrong through endless human feedback, you just give it a constitution, a set of core principles, like be helpful and harmless. Then, you teach the AI to be its own critic, to check its own work against those principles and revise its answers until they're in.
And you can see on this chart, it actually works. The models trained with a constitution, those are the gray and black dots, they consistently move up and to the right. That means they become both more helpful and more harmless over time. They're learning to be good partners, not just powerful, unpredictable tools.
But of course, it's not just about building better AI, it's about building a better society around it, and that's where governance comes in. The European Union's AI Act is this groundbreaking law, the first of its kind in the world, really, that sets clear rules for how AI can be built and used, making sure it aligns with our most important human values.
Okay, so we've covered the tech, the risks, the philosophy. What does all this actually mean for you? How can you thrive in this new co-led future?
Here's the playbook for how to become a partner with AI, not a victim of it. First, treat it like a sparring partner for your brain. Don't just ask it for answers. Use it to challenge your own assumptions and explore new ways of thinking. Second, get to know your tools. A fast, conversational AI is like a sports car. A powerful, analytical one is like a pickup truck. You wouldn't use a sports car to haul lumber, right? Use the right tool for the job. And most importantly, double down on what makes you human. Your creativity, your empathy, your judgment, these are things AI just can't replicate. They are your superpowers in the age of AI.
In the end, it all comes down to this. AI is an incredibly powerful tool, but responsibility can never, ever be automated. So the final question isn't whether you should be in the loop, it's how you're going to design your loop. What kind of partner will you be?